Young woman with amnesia falls in love with the same person twice. The reason behind it will make you cry. Hello, welcome, leave a like, subscribe, activate notifications, and enjoy this story. In a twist of fate, a compassionate nurse finds herself a patient in her own hospital with no memory of her past. As she falls in love with a mysterious patient, little does she know that their shared history holds the key to unlocking not just her memories, but a heart-wrenching secret that will challenge everything they thought they knew about love and forgiveness. The steady beep of a heart monitor pierced through the fog of unconsciousness. Olivia's eyelids fluttered open, squinting against the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital room. She blinked, trying to make sense of her surroundings. The sterile smell of disinfectant filled her nostrils, a scent both familiar and foreign. A gentle voice broke through her confusion. "Welcome back, Olivia. How are you feeling?" Olivia turned her head towards the voice, her eyes focusing on a kind-faced nurse in blue scrubs. She opened her mouth to speak, but her throat felt dry and scratchy. The nurse quickly offered her a cup of water, which she gratefully accepted. After a few sips, Olivia found her voice. I'm not sure. Where am I?" The nurse's smile faltered slightly. "You're at Mercy General Hospital. You were in a car accident 3 days ago. Do you remember anything about that?" Olivia furrowed her brow, trying to recall, but her mind was a blank canvas. Panic began to rise in her chest as she realized she couldn't remember the accident or anything before it. I can't remember. I can't remember anything." The nurse placed a comforting hand on Olivia's arm. "It's okay, Olivia. This can happen sometimes after a traumatic event. I'm going to page Dr. Thompson, our neurologist. He'll be able to explain everything better." As the nurse left the room, Olivia's eyes darted around, desperately searching for something familiar. Her gaze fell on a small mirror on the bedside table. With shaking hands, she picked it up, staring at her reflection. A young woman in her late 20s with auburn hair and green eyes looked back at her. The face was undoubtedly hers, but it felt like looking at a stranger. Dr. Thompson arrived shortly after, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a reassuring smile. He sat down beside Olivia's bed and began to explain her condition. "Olivia, you're experiencing what we call retrograde amnesia. It's not uncommon after a head injury like yours. Your brain has essentially blocked access to your memories as a protective measure. The good news is that this is often temporary." Olivia listened intently, trying to process the information. "So, I'll get my memories back?" Dr. Thompson nodded cautiously. "In many cases, yes, but it's a process and it can take time. Some memories might come back quickly, others more slowly. And in some cases..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Some memories might not return at all." The weight of his words settled over Olivia like a heavy blanket. She was a blank slate, a stranger to herself and everyone around her. "What about my family? My friends? Surely someone must be looking for me?" A shadow passed over Dr. Thompson's face. "We've been trying to contact your emergency contacts, but so far, we haven't had any luck. Do you remember anyone we could reach out to?" Olivia shook her head, feeling more lost than ever. "I can't remember anyone. It's like my entire life before waking up here is just gone." Dr. Thompson patted her hand gently. "Try not to worry too much, Olivia. Your brain needs time to heal. For now, focus on resting and recovering. We'll continue to work on contacting your family and friends." As Dr. Thompson stood to leave, a thought struck Olivia. "Wait, how did you know my name if you couldn't contact anyone?" The doctor smiled. "You're one of our nurses here at Mercy General, Olivia. Your colleagues recognized you when you were brought in. They've all been very worried about you." This revelation hit Olivia like a tidal wave. She was a nurse, working in this very hospital, yet she couldn't remember a single day of it. As Dr. Thompson left the room, Olivia lay back on her pillow, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she had lost. Outside her room, she could hear the bustle of the hospital, the place that was supposed to be her second home. Nurses chatted, phones rang, and somewhere, A child laughed. It was a world she should have known intimately, but now felt alien and intimidating. As night fell and the hospital quieted, Olivia stared out the window at the twinkling city lights. She was adrift in her own life, a stranger to herself and everyone around her. But as she watched an ambulance pull into the emergency bay, lights flashing, a small spark of familiarity flickered in her mind. It was barely anything, just a feeling, really, but it was something. And for now, that tiny spark was enough to give her hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find her way back to herself. Little did Olivia know that fate had a surprising journey in store for her, one that would lead her to rediscover love in the most unexpected way and uncover a truth that would shake the very foundations of her forgotten life. 2 weeks had passed since Olivia woke up in the hospital, and while her physical injuries were healing well, her memories remained stubbornly out of reach. She had been discharged from the patient ward but was staying in the hospital's short-term accommodation for staff, as she had nowhere else to go. Her colleagues had been kind and supportive, filling her in on bits and pieces of her life, but it all felt like stories about someone else. Today marked her first day back at work, not as a nurse, but as a volunteer in the hospital's rehabilitation ward. Dr. Thompson had suggested it might help jog her memory and give her a sense of purpose while she recovered. Olivia stood in front of the mirror in her small room, adjusting her volunteer badge. The face looking back at her was becoming more familiar, but the person behind those green eyes remained a mystery. With a deep breath, she stepped out into the corridor, ready to face whatever the day might bring. The rehabilitation ward was a busy place, full of patients working hard to regain their strength and independence. Olivia felt oddly at home here, her body seeming to remember the rhythms and routines of hospital life even if her mind didn't. As she was helping an elderly patient with his lunch, a commotion at the ward entrance caught her attention. 2 orderlies were wheeling in a new patient, a young man who appeared to be in his early 30s. He had dark, tousled hair and a strong jawline, but what struck Olivia most were his eyes, a deep, intense blue that seemed to hold a world of pain. The man was arguing with the orderlies, insisting he didn't need to be there. "I told you, I'm fine. I don't need rehab. I need to get back to work." Something about his voice made Olivia's heart skip a beat. She found herself drawn to him, her feet moving of their own accord. As she approached, the man's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, the world seemed to stand still. "Olivia?" he breathed, his anger dissipating instantly. Olivia felt a jolt of recognition, but try as she might, she couldn't place him. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" The man's face fell, a mix of confusion and hurt clouding his features. "It's me, Ethan. Ethan Walker. We were." He trailed off, seemingly at a loss for words. One of the orderlies, noticing Olivia's confusion, quickly intervened. "Mr. Walker, Olivia had an accident recently. She's experiencing some memory loss." Understanding dawned on Ethan's face, quickly replaced by concern. "An accident? Are you okay? I've been trying to reach you for weeks." But Olivia felt overwhelmed. This man clearly knew her, maybe even intimately, but she had no recollection of him. "I'm sorry. I can't remember." Ethan's shoulders slumped, but he managed a small smile. "It's okay. I'm just glad you're all right. When I couldn't reach you, I feared the worst." As the orderlies began to wheel Ethan to his assigned bed, Olivia found herself following. She couldn't explain the pull she felt towards the stranger who wasn't a stranger. "If you don't mind me asking, how do we know each other?" Ethan hesitated, a flicker of something, guilt, fear, passing over his face. "We're close, very close, but maybe it's better if you remember on your own. Dr. Thompson probably told you not to force it, right?" Olivia nodded, both frustrated and intrigued. As she helped Ethan get settled in his bed, she couldn't help but notice the way her body seemed to instinctively know how to move around him, how to anticipate his needs. It was as if her muscles remembered what her mind could not. "So, what brings you to rehab?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light and professional. Ethan grimaced. "Car accident. Broke my leg in 2 places. The doctors say I need to rebuild my strength before I can go back to work. Car accident. The words echoed in Olivia's mind, stirring something just out of reach. That's how I got hurt too. A car accident. Ethan's eyes widened, a flash of panic crossing his face before he quickly composed himself. Really? That's quite a coincidence. As Olivia was about to probe further, a nurse called her name from across the ward. I should go, she said reluctantly, but I'll be around if you need anything. Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. Thank you, Olivia, and I'm really glad you're okay. As Olivia walked away, her mind was buzzing with questions. Who was Ethan Walker? How did they know each other? And why did she feel such a strong connection to him? Little did she know that the answers to these questions would unravel a web of secrets, lies, and a love story more complex and heart-wrenching than she could have ever imagined. As she glanced back at Ethan, now staring pensively out the window, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that her forgotten past and this mysterious man were inextricably linked, for better or for worse. The following weeks saw Olivia settling into a routine at the rehabilitation ward. She found comfort in the daily tasks, her muscle memory often kicking in where her conscious mind failed her. But nothing felt quite as natural as the time she spent with Ethan. Despite her inability to remember him, Olivia found herself drawn to Ethan's bedside whenever she had a free moment. There was an ease to their interactions, a familiarity that both comforted and confused her. Ethan, for his part, was careful not to push her, respecting Dr. Thompson's advice to let her memories return naturally. One afternoon, as Olivia was helping Ethan with his physical therapy exercises, a fragment of memory flashed through her mind. It was brief, the scent of coffee, the sound of laughter, a warm hand in hers, but it was enough to make her gasp and lose her balance. Ethan reached out to steady her, concern etched on his face. Olivia, are you okay? She blinked, trying to hold onto the fleeting image. I think I remembered something. You and me in a coffee shop. A smile broke across Ethan's face, his eyes lighting up. Our first date. We met at the Grind, that little place on 5th Street. You spilled your latte all over my new shirt. Olivia laughed, the sound surprising her. Felt good, natural. That sounds like me. Always a bit clumsy. Hey now, I thought it was charming, Ethan teased, his hand still on her arm. The touch sent a warmth through Olivia, both familiar and exciting. As the days passed, more memories began to surface. They came in fragments, a shared joke, a quiet evening watching movies, a passionate kiss under the stars. Each one painted a picture of a deep, loving relationship between her and Ethan. Yet, something nagged at the back of Olivia's mind. If they were so close, why hadn't Ethan been contacted when she had her accident? She voiced this concern to her friend and fellow nurse, Jessica, one evening over dinner in the hospital cafeteria. Jessica's brow furrowed. That is strange. You never mentioned an Ethan to me before your accident. Are you sure he's telling you everything? Olivia pushed her food around her plate, conflicted. I don't know. The memories feel real, but there's still so much I can't recall. And sometimes, when I ask him about our past, he seems hesitant. Jessica reached across the table, squeezing Olivia's hand. Just be careful, okay? You're vulnerable right now. I'd hate to see anyone take advantage of that. Olivia nodded, but her heart rebelled against the idea. The connection she felt with Ethan felt too strong, too genuine to be fabricated. Still, Jessica's words planted a seed of doubt that Olivia couldn't entirely shake. The next day, as Olivia was helping Ethan back to his bed after a grueling therapy session, another memory hit her. This one was different, darker, filled with raised voices and tears. She stumbled, nearly dropping Ethan. Whoa, easy there, Ethan said, steadying himself on the bed rail. Another memory? Olivia nodded, her heart racing. We were fighting. It was bad, wasn't it? What were we arguing about? Ethan's face paled, and he looked away. Liv, maybe we shouldn't dash. Please, Ethan, Olivia pleaded. I need to know. These fragments are driving me crazy. I feel like I'm putting together a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. It was about my job. I work in construction, managing big projects. There was this one site, an old building we were renovating. I found out the company was cutting corners using substandard materials. It wasn't safe. Olivia listened intently, pieces starting to fall into place. You wanted to report it? Ethan nodded. Yeah, but it wasn't that simple. The owner of the company, he's a powerful man. He made it clear that if I talked, not only would I lose my job, but I'd be blacklisted from the industry. We argued because you wanted me to do the right thing, consequences be damned. But I was scared, Liv. It was my dream job, and I didn't want to lose everything I'd worked for. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air between them. Olivia could feel the echo of her past self's disappointment and anger. What happened then? Ethan's eyes met hers, filled with remorse. I made the wrong choice. I kept quiet. And you couldn't bear to be with someone who'd compromised their integrity like that. You left me, Olivia. The night of your accident. You were driving away from my place after telling me we were through. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. She stepped back, her mind reeling. So, when I had my accident, we weren't together, Ethan finished, his voice barely above a whisper. That's why they couldn't contact me. I tried calling you for days after I heard about the accident, but you'd blocked my number. Olivia felt her world tilting on its axis. The beautiful love story she'd been piecing together in her mind shattered, replaced by a much more complex, painful reality. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Ethan reached for her hand, his eyes pleading. Liv, I know I messed up, but losing you, thinking I might never see you again. It made me realize what really matters. I went to the authorities the day after your accident. The company's under investigation now. Olivia pulled her hand away, overwhelmed. I need some time to process all this. As she turned to leave, Ethan called after her, his voice thick with emotion. Olivia, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for a second chance. I love you. I've always loved you. Olivia paused at the door, her hand on the handle. Without turning back, she spoke softly. I need to remember who I am before I can decide who I want to be with, Ethan. I'm sorry. With that, she left, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and half-formed memories. As she walked down the hospital corridor, Olivia realized that recovering her past might be even more painful than losing it had been. She found herself in the hospital's small chapel, a quiet sanctuary where she often retreated when overwhelmed. Sitting in the back pew, Olivia closed her eyes and tried to sort through the chaos in her mind. The love she felt for Ethan was undeniable. It had survived her memory loss and blossomed anew. But now, tainted by the knowledge of his deceit and moral compromise, that love felt like a double-edged sword, cutting her deeply with every beat of her heart. Fragments of memories continued to surface. The pride she'd felt in Ethan's success, the growing unease as she noticed discrepancies in his work, the devastating moment when she uncovered the truth about the construction project. Each recollection was a piece of a puzzle she wasn't sure she wanted to complete. As the weight of her recovered past settled on her shoulders, Olivia found herself facing impossible questions. Could she separate the man she loved from his actions? Was redemption possible for someone who had knowingly put lives at risk for profit? And perhaps most troubling of all, what did it say about her that she still felt love for him despite everything? The sound of the chapel door opening startled Olivia from her thoughts. She looked up to see Jessica, concern etched on her face. Liv, are you okay? I saw you leave Ethan's room in a hurry, Jessica said softly, sliding into the pew beside her. Olivia felt tears welling up in her eyes. I remember, Jess. I remember everything. As Olivia poured out the whole story to her friend, she felt the full impact of her recovered memories. The pain, the betrayal, the love that still lingered despite it all. It was almost too much to bear. Jessica listened silently, her arm around Olivia's shoulders. When Olivia finally fell quiet, Jessica spoke. Oh, Liv, I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. But you know you don't have to face this alone, right? Olivia nodded, grateful for her friend's support. I know. It's just, what do I do now, Jess? How do I reconcile the Ethan I fell in love with twice with the man who did those terrible things? Jessica sighed. I don't have an easy answer for you, Liv. But I do know this, the Olivia I've always known is strong, compassionate, and believes in justice. Whatever you decide, I know it'll be true to who you are. As they sat in the quiet of the chapel, Olivia felt a resolve beginning to form within her. The path ahead was unclear and undoubtedly difficult, but she knew she had to face it head-on. Her journey of rediscovery was far from over. In fact, it was only now, with her memories intact, that the true test of her character was beginning. Rising from the pew, Olivia squared her shoulders. I need to talk to Ethan again, she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. And then, I think I need to speak with the authorities. Jessica stood beside her, squeezing her hand supportively. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. As Olivia walked out of the chapel, she felt as though she was stepping into a new chapter of her life. One where she would have to navigate the complex terrain of love, justice, and personal integrity. The woman who had woken up without memories weeks ago was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and ready to face the challenges ahead, no matter how painful they might be. The revelation of her complicated history with Ethan left Olivia reeling. For days, she threw herself into her work at the hospital, trying to avoid the rehabilitation ward and the man who had become both a source of comfort and confusion. But despite her best efforts, her mind kept returning to Ethan and the fragments of their shared past. One particularly restless night, Olivia found herself wandering the quiet hospital corridors. Her feet led her to the rehabilitation ward almost of their own accord. As she approached Ethan's room, she heard muffled voices. Curiosity got the better of her, and she paused just outside the door, listening. You can't keep this up, Ethan, a male voice she didn't recognize was saying. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to be when she remembers everything. I know, Ethan's voice replied, sounding strained. But you don't understand. This is my chance to make things right, to be the man she always wanted me to be. At what cost? The other voice challenged. Your conscience? Your freedom? You know what's at stake here. Olivia's heart raced. What were they talking about? What else was Ethan hiding? Just then, a nurse rounded the corner, and Olivia quickly pretended to be checking a chart. By the time the nurse passed, the voices in Ethan's room had fallen silent. Shaken, Olivia retreated to her room, her mind buzzing with new questions and suspicions. The next day, Olivia decided to do some digging. She approached Jessica during their lunch break, trying to keep her tone casual. Hey Jess, you've worked here longer than me, right? Do you remember any big construction projects around the time of my accident? Jessica thought for a moment. Yeah, actually, there was that old Hartley building downtown. It was a huge renovation project, but it got shut down suddenly. Something about safety violations, I think. Why do you ask? Olivia's pulse quickened, just trying to piece things together. Do you remember the name of the construction company? Walker Construction. I'm pretty sure, Jessica replied. Then her eyes widened. Wait, isn't that Dash? Ethan's company, Olivia finished, her suspicions growing. Thanks, Jess. You've been a big help. Armed with this information, Olivia spent her free time researching the Hartley building project. She discovered news articles about the safety violations, the ongoing investigation, and the potential criminal charges facing the company's leadership. But something didn't add up. The timeline of events didn't match what Ethan had told her. Determined to uncover the truth, Olivia decided to confront Ethan. She found him in the physical therapy room, working on his exercises. We need to talk, she said, her voice steady despite her internal turmoil. Ethan looked up, surprise and concern flashing across his face. Olivia, what's wrong? I've been doing some research about the Hartley building project, she began, watching his reaction carefully. The dates don't match up with what you told me. The investigation started weeks before my accident, not after. Ethan's face paled. He opened his mouth to speak, but Olivia cut him off. And I overheard you talking to someone last night. You're hiding something big, aren't you? Something that goes beyond just keeping quiet about safety violations. Ethan's shoulders slumped, defeat written across his features. Liv, I wanted to tell you everything, but I was afraid of losing you again. Tell me now, Olivia demanded, her heart pounding. I need to know the truth, Ethan. All of it. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers with a mix of shame and resolve. You're right. There's more to the story. A lot more. The truth is, I wasn't just an innocent bystander in all this. I was actively involved in covering up the safety violations. Olivia felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. What? But you said dash. I know what I said. Ethan interrupted, his voice thick with regret. I lied. I was trying to protect myself and you. The truth is, I knew about the substandard materials from the beginning. I helped orchestrate the cover-up. Olivia stumbled back, her mind reeling. Why? How could you do something like that? Ethan's eyes pleaded with her. It started small, just cutting a few corners to save money. But it snowballed. Before I knew it, I was in too deep. When you found out, you were furious. You threatened to go to the authorities yourself. A memory flashed through Olivia's mind, her own voice, filled with anger and disappointment. I can't be with someone who values money over people's lives, Ethan. This isn't the man I fell in love with. The night of your accident, Ethan continued, his voice barely above a whisper. You weren't just driving away from my place. You were on your way to the police station to turn in evidence against the company. Against me. Olivia felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. Are you saying my accident wasn't an accident at all? Ethan's face crumpled. I don't know for sure, but I've always feared. God, Olivia, I'm so sorry. When I heard about your accident, when I thought I might lose you forever, I realized what a fool I'd been. I went to the authorities the next day and confessed everything. Olivia's mind was spinning. The man before her, the man she'd been falling for all over again, was not who she thought he was at all. Why are you really here, Ethan? In this hospital? Ethan looked down at his hands. Part of my plea deal. I agreed to testify against the company executives in exchange for a reduced sentence. I'm here under protective custody until the trial. The leg injury is real, but it's not from a recent car accident. It's an old construction injury that never healed properly. The weight of his confession hung heavy in the air between them. Olivia felt tears stinging her eyes, a mixture of anger, betrayal, and grief overwhelming her. I can't. She turned and fled from the room, ignoring Ethan's calls behind her. She ran until she found an empty supply closet, where she collapsed to the floor, sobs racking her body. As Olivia cried, fragments of memories assaulted her, heated arguments, tearful pleas, the cold determination she felt as she packed her bags that fateful night. The love she and Ethan had shared was real, but so was the pain and betrayal. Now, as the truth lay bare before her, Olivia faced a heart-wrenching dilemma. Could she forgive Ethan for his past mistakes? Could she reconcile the man she'd fallen for twice with the flawed, morally compromised person he'd revealed himself to be? And most pressingly, what did this mean for her own safety and the upcoming trial that could put Ethan behind bars? As the enormity of the situation settled over her, Olivia realized that recovering her memories was just the beginning. The real challenge lay in deciding what to do with the truth she'd uncovered, and whether the love she felt for Ethan was strong enough to withstand the storm that was surely coming. Days passed in a blur for Olivia as she grappled with the weight of Ethan's confession. She threw herself into her work, avoiding the rehabilitation ward and the man who had turned her world upside down once again. But despite her best efforts, she couldn't escape the tumult of emotions that raged within her. One evening, as she was finishing her shift, Dr. Thompson approached her with a concerned look. Olivia, do you have a moment? I'd like to discuss your progress. They settled into his office, the warm glow of a desk lamp creating a cozy atmosphere that contrasted sharply with Olivia's inner turmoil. "I've noticed you've been distracted lately," Dr. Thompson began gently. "Is everything all right? Has something triggered more memories?" Olivia hesitated, then decided to confide in him. She explained the situation with Ethan, careful to omit any details that might compromise the ongoing investigation. Dr. Thompson listened attentively, his brow furrowed in thought. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair with a sigh. "That's quite a predicament, Olivia. How are you feeling about all this?" "Confused," she admitted. "Angry, hurt, but also, I still care for him. Is that crazy? After everything he's done?" "Emotions aren't always rational," Dr. Thompson replied kindly. "The heart wants what it wants, even when our mind tells us otherwise. The question is, what do you want to do now?" Olivia shook her head, feeling lost. "I don't know. Part of me wants to run as far away as possible. But another part wonders if people can truly change. If love can be strong enough to overcome past mistakes." Dr. Thompson nodded thoughtfully. "Those are heavy questions, Olivia. But remember, you're not just deciding about Ethan. You're deciding about the kind of person you want to be, the kind of life you want to lead." His words struck a chord in Olivia. She realized that this wasn't just about Ethan or their relationship. It was about her values, her integrity, and the path she wanted to forge for herself. As she left Dr. Thompson's office, Olivia felt a newfound sense of purpose. She knew what she had to do. The next morning, she made her way to the rehabilitation ward, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. She found Ethan sitting in a chair by the window, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Olivia," he breathed, hope and apprehension mingling in his voice. "I wasn't sure if you'd come back." She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Ethan, I've done a lot of thinking. About us, about what happened, about who I am and who I want to be." Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "And I remember more now," Olivia continued. "I remember how much I loved you, how much it hurt to discover what you'd done. And I remember my determination to do the right thing, no matter the cost." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I can't condone what you did, Ethan. It was wrong and it put people's lives at risk. But I also can't ignore the fact that you came clean, that you're trying to make amends." Hope flickered in Ethan's eyes. "Does this mean?" Olivia held up a hand, stopping him. "It means I'm willing to give you a chance to prove that you've really changed. But not as a couple, not yet. As friends. As two people working towards redemption and healing." Ethan's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you, Olivia. That's more than I deserve. I promise I'll do whatever it takes to regain your trust." "It won't be easy," Olivia warned. "There's still the trial, the potential consequences of your actions. And I need time to figure out who I am now, with all my memories intact." Ethan nodded solemnly. "I understand, and I'll be here, supporting you however I can, for as long as you'll let me." As they sat there, a comfortable silence settling between them, Olivia felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with legal battles, emotional hurdles, and the hard work of rebuilding trust. But for the first time since uncovering the truth, she felt like they might have a chance. Just then, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Raised voices and hurried footsteps approached Ethan's room. Olivia stood, moving protectively towards Ethan as the door burst open. Two men in suits entered, flashing badges. "Ethan Walker? We're with the FBI. We need you to come with us immediately. There's been a development in the case." Olivia's heart raced as she watched Ethan being escorted out. He turned back to her, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "It'll be okay, Liv. Remember, I'm doing the right thing now, no matter what happens." As Ethan disappeared down the hallway, Olivia sank into the chair he had vacated, her mind reeling. Just when she thought they might have a chance at a fresh start, fate had thrown them another curveball. She stared out the window, watching as Ethan was led to a waiting car. Whatever came next, she realized, would test not only their newfound friendship but also their individual strength and integrity. The journey of rediscovery and redemption was far from over, and the biggest challenges still lay ahead. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity and emotion for Olivia. With Ethan in protective custody preparing for the trial, she found herself torn between focusing on her own recovery and worrying about his fate. Her memories had mostly returned now, bringing with them a complex tapestry of emotions: love, betrayal, anger, and hope all intertwined. The day of the trial arrived with a palpable tension in the air. Olivia sat in the courtroom, her heart pounding as she watched Ethan take the stand. He looked pale but determined, his eyes briefly meeting hers before focusing on the prosecutor. "Mr. Walker," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about your involvement in the Hartley Building project." Ethan took a deep breath. "I was the project manager. I knowingly approved the use of substandard materials to cut costs. When safety concerns were raised, I helped cover them up." The prosecutor nodded. "And why are you testifying today?" "Because it was wrong," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "People could have been hurt or killed. I realized too late the magnitude of my mistakes, but I'm here to make it right." As Ethan continued his testimony, Olivia found herself on an emotional roller coaster. She felt pride in his courage to come clean, anger at his past actions, and a lingering affection that she couldn't quite shake. But most of all, she felt a growing respect for the man he was becoming, someone who was facing the consequences of his actions head-on. The trial stretched on for days, with a parade of witnesses and mountains of evidence. Olivia attended every day, watching as the full scope of the corruption was laid bare. It was during a particularly grueling cross-examination of one of the company executives that a memory suddenly struck her. She gasped, drawing curious looks from those around her. In a flash, she remembered a conversation she had overheard the night before her accident, a conversation that implicated someone high up in the local government in the scandal. Olivia's mind raced. This information could be crucial to the case, but revealing it would mean admitting she had been on her way to expose the scandal the night of her accident. It would raise questions about whether the accident had truly been an accident at all. During a recess, Olivia approached the prosecutor, her heart pounding. "Excuse me, I have some information that might be relevant to the case." The prosecutor looked at her curiously. "Ms. Chun, isn't it? Mr. Walker's friend?" Olivia nodded. "Yes, but this isn't about Ethan. It's about something I remembered. Something that might implicate others in this scandal." As Olivia shared what she had remembered, the prosecutor's eyes widened. "This is significant, Ms. Chun. But you understand that if you testify, it could open up an investigation into your accident." Olivia took a deep breath. "I understand, but it's the right thing to do." The next day, Olivia found herself on the stand, acutely aware of Ethan's gaze from the defendant's table. She recounted what she had remembered, her voice steady despite her nerves. "And you believe your car accident might have been related to this information?" the prosecutor asked. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "I can't be certain, but given the timing and the nature of the information, it's a possibility I've considered." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Olivia caught Ethan's eye, seeing a mix of admiration and concern in his gaze. As she stepped down from the stand, Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Whatever happened next, she knew she had done the right thing. The trial concluded a week later. Ethan and several other lower-level employees received reduced sentences in exchange for their cooperation, while the company executives faced significant prison time. The revelation of potential government involvement had sparked a separate investigation. After the verdict was read, Olivia found Ethan in the courthouse hallway. He looked exhausted but relieved. "Thank you," he said softly, "for being here, for telling the truth. I know it couldn't have been easy." Olivia nodded. "It wasn't, but I think we both needed to do this, to face the truth, no matter how difficult." Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand. "So where do we go from here?" Olivia looked at their joined hands, then back up at Ethan's face. She saw remorse there, but also hope and a determination to be better. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I think we've both earned a fresh start. Maybe we can figure it out together." A small smile tugged at Ethan's lips. "I'd like that." As they walked out of the courthouse into the bright sunlight, Olivia felt a sense of possibility she hadn't experienced since before her accident. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, she was excited to see where it might lead. Little did they know that their journey of redemption and reconnection was far from over. The fallout from the trial would bring new challenges, forcing both Olivia and Ethan to confront their past and fight for their future in ways they never could have imagined. The months following the trial were a period of adjustment for both Olivia and Ethan. With Ethan serving his reduced sentence through community service and probation, they found themselves navigating a new dynamic in their relationship. They were neither the carefree couple they once were, nor the estranged individuals torn apart by betrayal. Instead, they were two people bound by a shared past, working to build a future on a foundation of honesty and redemption. Olivia had returned to her nursing duties full-time, finding solace in the routine and the ability to help others. She was also undergoing therapy to process the trauma of her accident and the emotional whirlwind of the past few months. It was during one of these sessions that she had a breakthrough. "I've been having these dreams," Olivia confided to her therapist, Dr. Martinez. "They're fragments, really, flashes of the night of my accident. But they don't feel like memories. They feel different." Dr. Martinez leaned forward, intrigued. "Different how?" Olivia furrowed her brow, trying to articulate the feeling. "It's like I'm watching myself from outside my body. I see a car following me, getting closer. I hear a voice shouting, warning me, but it's not my voice." The therapist nodded thoughtfully. "It's not uncommon for trauma survivors to experience dissociative memories. Your mind might be trying to process events it wasn't ready to face before. Have you shared these dreams with anyone else?" Olivia shook her head. "No, not yet. I'm not sure what to make of them." As she left the session, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that these dreams were more than just her mind's attempt to fill in the blanks. They felt like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't even known she was trying to solve. That evening, she met Ethan for coffee at a small cafe near the hospital. It had become their routine, a neutral ground where they could talk and rebuild their connection. As they settled into a quiet corner booth, Olivia decided to broach the subject of her dreams. Ethan listened intently, his face growing increasingly concerned as she described the fragments she'd been seeing. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. "Ethan," Olivia prompted gently, "what is it?" He looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and resolve. "Liv, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Olivia felt her heart rate quicken. "What do you mean?" Ethan took a deep breath. "The night of your accident, I was there." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Olivia processed his words. "What? How? Why didn't you tell me?" "I was afraid," Ethan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "After our fight, after you left to go to the police, I realized what a fool I'd been. I couldn't let you go through with it alone. I followed you, trying to catch up, to tell you I was ready to come clean." Olivia's mind raced, pieces starting to fall into place. "The voice in my dreams. It was you?" Ethan nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "I saw the other car coming. I tried to warn you, but it was too late. The next thing I knew, your car was off the road, and I was calling for an ambulance. But why didn't you stay? Why didn't you tell anyone you were there?" Olivia asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I panicked," Ethan confessed. "I knew how it would look, your ex-boyfriend, the one you were about to turn in, at the scene of your accident. I was a coward. I left before the ambulance arrived." Olivia sat back, feeling as if the wind had been knocked out of her. The revelation brought with it a flood of emotions. Anger at Ethan's deception, relief at finally understanding what had happened, and a growing suspicion about the true nature of her accident. "Ethan," she said slowly, "do you think, was my accident really an accident? The look on Ethan's face confirmed her fears before he even spoke. I don't know for sure, but given what we know now about how far up the corruption went, I've always feared it wasn't. The implications of this hit Olivia like a tidal wave. Her accident, the event that had erased her memories and set in motion this entire journey of rediscovery, might have been a deliberate attempt to silence her. "We need to go to the police," she said, her voice filled with determination. "If there's even a chance that someone tried to kill me to cover up the scandal, they need to know." Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. "I know, and I'll be right there with you. It's time I faced the consequences of all my actions, not just the ones that came out in the trial." As they left the cafe, heading towards the police station, Olivia felt a strange mix of fear and resolve. She knew that by coming forward with this information, she and Ethan were potentially putting themselves in danger again. But she also knew that it was the only way to truly close this chapter of their lives and move forward. Walking side by side, they shared a look of understanding. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The journey that had begun with Olivia's loss of memory was far from over, but for the first time, she felt like they were on the right path. A path of truth, justice, and the possibility of a love reborn from the ashes of their past. The investigation into Olivia's accident sent shockwaves through the community. As weeks turned into months, a complex web of corruption and cover-ups began to unravel, reaching far beyond the construction scandal that had initially brought everything to light. Olivia and Ethan found themselves at the center of a media storm, their story of amnesia, betrayal, and redemption capturing the public's imagination. Despite the pressure, they stood united, supporting each other through grueling interviews and tense court appearances. It was during one such court session that the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. A former city official, caught in the widening net of the investigation, broke down on the stand. He confessed to ordering the hit on Olivia, confirming their suspicions that her accident had been a deliberate attempt to silence her. As the courtroom erupted in chaos, Olivia felt Ethan's hand slip into hers. She turned to him, seeing a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. The truth was finally out, but it came at a heavy cost. In the days that followed, Olivia found herself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. There was anger at those who had tried to harm her, relief at finally knowing the full truth, and a deep sadness for all that had been lost. But amidst it all, there was also a growing sense of peace. One evening, as she and Ethan walked along the riverfront, Olivia broke the comfortable silence between them. "You know, I've been thinking about memory," she said, her eyes on the setting sun reflecting off the water. Ethan looked at her curiously. "What about it?" "When I lost my memories, I thought I'd lost everything that made me who I was," Olivia explained. "But now I realize our experiences shape us, but they don't define us. It's the choices we make, especially in the face of adversity, that truly show who we are." Ethan nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. "And who do you think you are now, Liv?" Olivia turned to face him, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'm someone who's been given a second chance. Someone who's seen the worst in people, but also the capacity for change and redemption. I'm someone who's ready to move forward, without forgetting the past." Ethan's eyes shimmered with emotion. "And where do I fit into this new version of you?" Olivia reached out, taking both his hands in hers. "You're a part of my past, Ethan. But more importantly, if you want to be, you're a part of my future. We've both made mistakes, we've both changed. Maybe it's time we got to know each other again. Not as who we were, but as who we are now." A smile broke across Ethan's face, brighter than she'd seen in months. "I'd like that, Liv. More than anything." As they stood there, the last rays of sunlight painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, Olivia felt a sense of hope she hadn't experienced in a long time. Their journey had been filled with pain, loss, and difficult truths, but it had also led them here, to this moment of new beginnings. Olivia knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges to face, trust to rebuild, and a relationship to redefine. But as she looked at Ethan, she saw not just the man she had loved before, but the man he had become, someone who had faced his mistakes and fought to make amends. In that moment, Olivia realized that sometimes love isn't about forgetting the past or pretending it never happened. Sometimes it's about acknowledging the journey with all its ups and downs and choosing to move forward together. As they turned to walk back, hand in hand, Olivia felt a sense of completion. The young woman with amnesia who had fallen in love twice was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and ready to write the next chapter of her life. Not with the innocence of forgotten memories, but with the hard-won wisdom of a love that had endured, evolved, and ultimately triumphed. Thank you very much for listening to this story. Comment below what you thought of the ending and from which city you're listening to us. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, click on the next story that's appearing on your screen now. Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so we can build a huge community that shares inspiring stories together. See you soon.